Hi, everyone. We are back with interview number 7 on our launch week Monday. It's just so exciting to have all these speakers, everyone coming back. Cheyenne's episode came out today, Chaos to Calm, Empowering Moms Through Habits. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about habits. If anyone's in the audience and wants to ask any questions because they were able to listen to it or anything out there. And so again, we're listening to the Mama Genius Hub podcast launch day. Things have been rolling. We got people listening to episodes. We got courses offered on the website. There's all kinds of movement happening. But right now, we're going to talk a little about Cheyenne. And I forgot to put your bio up. So we'll let Cheyenne tell us a little bit about herself.
Fantastic. So I'm a mother of 2 teenage boys, and I have a day job, and I also have a side business called Inspiring Solutions for You, where I provide customized financial coaching and solutions for anyone from individuals to businesses and all the mix in between. Whether you have a budget or don't have a budget, I say it's mind hack your way to savings to put more money in your investments, less on the shelves of others, while taking your life back one financial decision at a time. And I have a great passion for it. I've been in the space for over 18 years of helping people, and I just love helping people with sharing my experience of what I've learned from others and my own life experiences to help their life a little bit easier.
All I got to say is I'm so glad you did that instead of me because you did it so much better than I would have. So high five to you because I just love that
I
intro. And
always use that.
I love how you know though with the whole passion and idea because finances is such like just an enigma. And for me, like even it's been such a struggle and you've been helping me with that too. And we were talking a lot about mindset and money before is because that does bring a lot of chaos. And we've been talking about part of empowering your decisions are habits. And so let's talk about those habits related to money that can help us create some of that calm within the chaos. I feel like finances are one of those things that can really break or make you.
Yes, yes. So there are many different habits, and what I've learned through my own practices is wondering why I repeat the same habits and go, wait a minute, that did not help. I didn't need that, or later find it in the closet, still in the package with the tag on, or whatever, and go, why did I buy that? And what I realized through my journey is we are inundated with reasons to spend our money, but not enough reasons to sit back and go, wait a minute, do I really need to make that purchase? And so when I provide coaching to people is I'm actually not being critical of the decisions they've made because I help them understand why they've made them and how moving forward we can make different decisions and why. Um, that's part of the mind hack because what I've learned is you do a lot of repetitive behavior. A lot of what you learn came before the age of 7, and 95% of what you do is unconscious, which that leaves a lot of decisions that are made unconsciously. So you get in the habit of buying the daily coffee because it becomes a habit. So then you almost feel like at a loss without it. So one thing that I recommend for some of those habitual purchases every day is how can you use that as a treat or a reward for bring it back into the conscious. Do you really need the coffee, or is it just such a habit that you feel just like you're missing something in the day because you don't have it? So what if you revamp that habit into drinking water, which is going to actually motivate you better, um, and hydrate your body better than what coffee will, because the caffeine will actually dehydrate you. So you're actually doing the adverse effect. You actually need more hydration to wake up. Anyways, aside from that, is use it as a reward. So maybe you go a couple days without it, and then you get one. You're like, oh, I made it 2 days. Maybe it's a week, and then you extend it to a couple weeks, and then into a month. And the other thing that I started doing is reframing in my mind. We always can justify all the things we spend at that moment. We use our life experiences, we use our habits, and we justify it. And instead start justifying why you want to save your money. Maybe it's for retirement, maybe it's for your kids school, um, maybe it's just you want to buy something of higher quality of something that you need in the house or something. But just start working on ways and reminding yourself, I'm looking for ways to save my money and not spend my money. I used to always, I've heard this over and over again, pay yourself first the 10%. And I always went, how do you pay 10%? I have 2 kids, I don't have money. Like, how do you pay yourself first? You're paying your bills first, right? Well, what I learned in that is through a lot of what you hear about paying your debts off, paying your debts off. Well, what I've learned through my own life experiences, because I didn't pay myself first, into a vehicle, an investment vehicle, and there's multiple ones out there, and we won't get into those details today, but that can actually make your money make you money, right? By compound interest. You earn the interest instead of paying it to everybody else that's earning interest on their money. And what that does is, one, it starts creating an abundance mindset. But the other thing is when you're working on paying your debt off, if you haven't set up a foundation to start earning you money so you can be kind of your own banker with some of the right tools, then when life happens, you may have been making progress on the debt, and now all of a sudden you have more because something major happened, job loss, divorce, became a widow or a widower. I mean, there's all sorts of different things, major medical things that can just throw a monkey wrench into those plans of debt reduction, to the point where it seems like every time you're starting back over again sometimes. And when you have the right tool where you can put that money that you paid yourself first to start accruing you more money, then maybe, even a certificate of deposit. Sometimes you can get low interest loans against that money, but you're really saving yourself, a lot of money because you're borrowing from yourself, you're paying less interest. And a lot of times sometimes it can pay right to yourself anyways. And so that's just one idea of that. And what I've learned by continuing to tell myself, how do I save money instead of spend money, I'm reframing it in my mind. So I used to be, we've mentioned about, going out to eat because, oh, no one wants to make a decision on what to eat. Even going out to eat sometimes a challenge. Where do you want to go? I don't know. No one wants to make that decision either. But that aside is when I used to be like, oh, I'm tired. I would justify going out to eat. Well, when I started switching my mindset of how can I save money, I started justifying going, I probably could make an egg sandwich or a tuna fish sandwich or grilled cheese for that matter, just something small, light, or maybe you have a piece of fruit so you get out of the hangry or the quick decision making so you can continue to eat healthy by just grabbing a quick snack to calm that hangry part, right? But now it's actually gotten to the point, because I keep that mindset rolling in my head all the time, my ego will say, let's go out to eat. My mind saver now will say, no, but that's this much money, and no, we could use that for something else. So it actually is the flip now, because I've been constantly training my brain to look at it the other way. It's actually hard for me to want to go out because now I justify not going out to eat. It's quite the phenomenon I found, because like, wow, every time I think about it, I'm like, nah, there's something else in the fridge I can have. I don't really want to spend the money, which is a positive though too. So
for me, I feel like as a kid, like we ate out more than we ate in, and my dad always take out a lot more than we had home cooked food. So for me, it was always something I was used to, and so I thought I preferred till we started doing more home cook, and I don't necessarily like the leftovers. The kids might eat those, but I'll make myself something different. But I'll still like we'll make that, like tonight we did leftover night, but I like took some of the vegetables and I just put some leftover pasta and mixed it all together for me, and they picked out whatever they want. But it was just that idea of like making extra so that on those long nights when we don't have as much time, is that they're just there and you pull them out and like kind of like buffet style, and the kids get to pick whatever they want.
right.
They're almost excited that they just get to make whatever they want. So we always just make a little bit
Yep.
more when we're cooking to make that easier, because again, it does come also down to just making that decision and the energy it takes to expel those things. So when you've already planned it out and, oh, well, that's left overnight, oh, that's just off your mind.
Right.
And then that helps it move forward so that it's not so chaotic and like, oh, we got to rush. And honestly, I feel at this time of night, going through a drive-through takes longer than if I just had packed food. A lot of times that's what we do, is it's just like the girls have swim. I'll pack food for them to take in the car, because it's actually, we don't have time to even stop and pick up food.
Yeah, one of our things was that we would go in the morning and have coffee and a breakfast bagel. And I got to thinking, for how fast I could make a breakfast sandwich at home was quicker than the drive there, the waiting in the line to get it. And then it starts going back to that justification of, well, do I really need to spend $5 a bagel when I could probably make it for $1 or less at home? And then you look at the time, you're absolutely correct. It doesn't save you near as much time. Even something as simple as lunch, maybe it's just avocado toast if you need for a quick snack. But as long as you keep some of the staples you kind of rely on handy, and you just start working at it bit by bit. Oh, I'm just going to grab a helping of cottage cheese or helping a yogurt to tie you over to make a better decision. You're going to save money, you're going to eat healthier, and you waste a lot of time waiting in line. Even in a restaurant, and I used to do that. I used to justify going out to eat to go have fish. And one time I was walking by the store and found that I could buy a whole bag of cod, 2 pounds of it, for the price of one meal. So I determined that I could finish up doing what I was doing, and while I was in the shower, my fish was baking. I could enjoy my meal in my PJs sitting on my couch. I didn't have to get dressed up to go out on the town. I didn't have to wait at the restaurant for them to even prepare the meal, eat my meal, and drive back home. Instead, I got to enjoy it warm in my PJs on my couch. And for a whole lot less.
You were talking about the bagel and going out to go get the breakfast. I was thinking, man, I don't even want to get out of my PJs to eat breakfast.
Right. Well, we would do that on the way to work or way to school or something like that. And now we just turned it into more of a treat really every once in a while, where before it was almost like, oh, I don't feel like making breakfast. Let's go. And it really, it was expensive. But like I said, you can justify either way. And so a lot of the tips and tricks that I work through with people are those different ways to start retraining your brain, because what you're doing is just off of habits you've picked up along the way from most of the time someone else. And you don't know if they justify, if that's actually helping you. And so that's how I work with people. And it helps with those different decisions. Like you're saying, the leftover things. I'm not crazy on leftovers either, but I've learned to enjoy them for lunch because it was better than, like you said, going out to eat, having fast food, which isn't good for you. Waiting in line, you'd waste half your lunch waiting in line to get lunch, and then you're just inhaling it. So that wasn't healthy because now you're eating super fast. You don't have much time left. But just packing lunch. And what I've learned that helps me is I really try to only make a little extra, enough for 1 or 2 lunches instead of something that lasts all week, because by the time you've had it 3-4 times, you're like, okay, I don't really want to eat this again. And so it's just learning to do it within moderation, or having a couple meals so that one day you had one leftover, the next lunch you had a different leftover, just so you could not get sick of it. Other than soup, if someone has a trick out there that how to make little batches of soup, send it my way, because every time I try, I still end up with a big pot, and then I'm eating it forever, and I'm not crazy out of the freezer.
Well, it was funny because, speaking of leftovers, there's actually a show on Netflix, how to take your leftovers and turn them into a gourmet meal, and it's like a challenge for them, and they get these weird leftovers and have to it. So it inspired my son, because we were making nachos and stuff, and there was a bag left over, and oh my God, the chips were so stale. So he was determined to use these chips for something. He ended up finding a recipe, and he guesses. Yeah, what do you use stale corn chips for, right?
I feed them to my dog, so no idea. Or the birds.
He was able to grind them up in the food processor and create like kind of a corn mix that he ended up making it ended up being cornbread muffins.
And it didn't taste stale?
And they did not taste like stale chips. They definitely tasted different, but it was just so creative. And I just love the mindset of it, of like, from watching Leftover Show and he's like, I'm just trying to use everything up. And I was like, I'll eat some and try them. So he's the one who's been eating them all week because he was so inspired by doing this. But he turned that stale bag of corn chips into cornbread, or cornbread muffins. And I was just like, I would never have ever thought of doing that. And I think that's what it comes down to, is when we're inspiring that genius in ourselves, that our kids start to pick up and get these out of the box ideas, because that's what this is all about, is really what are things you enjoy. And he enjoys cooking. So he's going to be so excited to like do those kind of things, to do those. Hey, Red, thanks for coming on and sharing with us too. And you got to learn how to make cornbread muffins out of stale corn chips.
Well, and that goes so much deeper, because when I was mentioning about so much of the habits that you learn start from the age of 7, some of the simplest things that you can do in your household, you're then teaching your kids something that they're going to turn into a habit, good or bad. So if you start those types of habits where he's like, oh, I don't really want it to go to waste, what can we do with it? you already have saved him thousands of dollars in his lifetime, just in the mere fact that he's now going to see the fun in that, start to do that, and he's going to waste less food naturally over time. Even if it's just here and there, you're still saving a lot of money. Even the times where I didn't go out to eat and I knew I had limited in my fridge because I hadn't been grocery shopping, and but I always try to have the basics on hand to make to fill it up. But there are definitely times it's like, well, I guess lunch is a protein shake because that's about what I have left, But it was still better than spending $15 going out to eat, for 20 or more, depending on the area you're in. But
And I love how you said, I mean, not even thinking about the money or saving or anything. It's just really about the mindset and wondering what is your intent behind the decision. Because if it was just because you didn't feel like doing it or didn't have a plan for it, and this was just like a default reaction or habit that you were doing, and that's what we're trying to like pick out from here is let's pick out what are the things that we just feel like we're not even sure why we're doing that, or is it just like maybe that we're feeling lazy, or and a lot of time that is just because we didn't have a plan or take time to get some extra groceries in the house on Sunday or whatever it is, and it's okay when that happens. But at the same time, like we just want intent behind our decisions of what we're doing instead of mindlessly. So if, like as Cheyenne was saying, if your intent is to go have a big fancy dinner because you saved up and like that, or even not even saved up, it's your birthday or you want to celebrate, like by all means, like go do it, but go do it to enjoy it and not just to do it because you didn't have a different idea to do it with.
Yeah, one of the examples I love to share is something that I heard from a psychologist many years ago, and it goes along with learning those habits at a young age. This family would always cut the ends of their ham off before they cooked it. And the daughter asked the mom one time, "Why do we always cut the ends of the ham off?" She's like, "I don't know, but I did it because my mom did it. But grandma's here in the room, so let's go ask her." And they went and go ask the grandma, and the grandma's like, "I don't know, I did it because my mom always did it." But great grandma ended up was in the room as well because it was the holidays. And so they went and asked great grandma, "Why did we always cut the ends off of the ham?" She's like, "I always cut the ends off of the ham because I didn't have a pan big enough to bake it in." So here, all these generations, they were just passing along this habit of cutting the ends of the ham off without any understanding of why. And it turns out there was no reason, no need for it any further. It was just the mere fact she never had a big enough pan for it. So when I heard that, it really made me start to go look at why am I doing what I'm doing? Why do I keep repeating the same financial decisions or the same any decision? When you start to look at it consciously and go, it's really not it's not helping what I'm trying to do. One of the examples I share is that I'm notorious for buying multiples of things. Well, I started looking into it when I'd put the 10th thing on the shelf and go, why did I do that again? I already had 10 of them. Well, what I realized is, as part of the RAS system, I would tell my mind, I need to remember to buy X, like a box of Kleenex. So I'd go to the store. Maybe it didn't make it my list, but my mind would remember and say, hey, remember, you need to buy Kleenex. So I'd buy the Kleenex. Well, multiple times thereafter, my mind would continually remind me to buy the box of Kleenex until I would finally stop and go recognize I already had bought it. So now I start a do not buy list. So anytime I buy a case of something, it goes on the do not buy list as a trigger to my mind that, hey, we took care of that. I don't need it again. But I realized it was just out of those habits and out of that, your mind loving habits. And you told it to remember. So it was helping you remember, but you never gave it a clue to say, hey, wait a minute, we're good.
I mean, that's so true. I mean, it's like navigating anything. I mean, we're navigating something and these habits and things that our brains trying to make easier for us just to so we don't, like you said, so we don't run out, not realizing that we already did it. And we just have these things, and it's because we have that unconscious going there. And so we want to make sure that when we're programming that unconscious, it's programming things that we want to do instead of those habitual habits. We're tired. Why do I keep doing this? But it's an intentional trigger, like you said, where you have to recognize it to be able to put a stop to it, to implant a new way to go. And when we talk about these habits and the habit stacking is it starts with identifying first. And the first thing I want to say with identifying is we need to, I know because one of the first thoughts is like getting angry at yourself for that.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I'd like you to be proud of yourself for recognizing it, because that's so more important, because if you recognize it, you can do something about it. But if you sit there
Right.
beating yourself up, then it's just going to be a habitual cycle of you in your head going, I can't believe you did that again. Why'd you do that again?
Right. Exactly. Exactly that. You have to bring it back to the conscious mind, make a new decision, a new habit, and do something different about it. Um, and it just takes practice, but it gets easier. That's what I've noticed over time as I have learned this. Because I know some people, even something as simple as the exercise habit, it's hard to get into for some. And I heard another trick that someone else used. They're like, go to the gym and just go there with no intent to exercise and just consistently go, I'm going to go there every day and just go there every day with no expectation to do anything. Eventually, your mind's going to be like, well, let's go do something about it. But because you've kind of worked your way into it, before long, it became a habit to go, and you're not getting not say the penalty, but the frustration of maybe you're not losing fast enough, you're not seeing the results fast enough. If you just go in there with no intent and then you just start working out, and if you do progress pictures or something like that, you're going to start seeing the change over time. But by then, you've already built the habit.
I think that's so true in terms of just habit building. And I had such a good point, and it just like escaped my head. But it's been a long day, and so you can see my voice is going quickly. But we're gonna push through this, because that's what we do when we set our time and our minds to something, right? Because that's what it really is. It's about that mindset, determining what are our goals. And right now, my goal is to make sure that we get these messages out there, because there's so many moms out there who are in this guilt trip and blaming themselves for all these habit changing. But it's when we stop to recognize these things and we make those incremental changes that they become more long term. And that's what we're really trying to do is but a lot of times it is hard to recognize them in ourselves. And that's why I also want to, as we're getting closer to wrapping up, is plug the women's circle on Thursday, because that's a space for us to collectively come together to bring out those ideas in our hearts. Because if you want to go deep, fast, and quickly in a safe space, that's the way to do it, is with a group of trusting women, right? Is because you can go in and do the deep work that might take you longer, because you have to go through your head, you have to stop the thoughts, and you have to go deeper. And it's a different process, and it's a different way of doing it, which by all means, the best way to really do things are to journal about it, to get it out of your head, and then reread it. And the next best thing is to be witnessed by someone else and to have those words come in your mouth. So this is the platform, the method of being able to do that. So, and Cheyenne can tell us a little bit about that too, because she's been to many of them.
Yes, I love it. It definitely gives me a space to just safely, freely be authentic with challenges, things that are just come to mind. And sometimes they're just good things just to let be and recognize in a good way. But I love the transformation from a women's circle. I don't know how else to put it, because you go in there and you might be uptight about something, and by the time you've left, you're relaxed, and it's lovely because you do it before bed, so you're ready to just kind of snuggle into your pillow and just relax into sleep. But you mentioned you had a couple of questions before we started all this live today.
Yes, one I'll get to those in one second, but just want to
Sure.
go your transformation bit and say it's an energy shift. Because remember that
Okay.
we're all
Mhm.
energetic beings, and whatever energy, whether we're like moody or like frustrated, we're going to send off that energy. And so, what we're doing when we do any kind of self care, whether it's exercise, meditation, anything, we're aiming to shift that in us from that chaos to calm. And the more we do that in whatever form works best for you, we make those transformations and those energy shifts. So, yes, I do have some questions for you. This is the one question. Thank you for reminding me, because my brain's not is not here today. Um, but well, it was here. It's left the room, but we're going. But I've really been focusing on the word busy, because I've even been calling out saying busy moms, because we identify as that. You'll say, how are you doing today? Well, I'm really busy, blah, 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 blah. And then you're just it's like this almost identification of like, well, who's busier, and it's like this art, award for doing that. I'm not sure what the kids are doing. Um, and so I want to ask, do you have any other takeaways of how can we reword that? So someone asks you how you're doing. My natural instinct is say, well, I was really busy today. What about, do you have any ideas for us?
Yeah, so I've had a really productive day. I got a lot of things accomplished off of my list. It's aside from being busy, because you're right, when we identify as being busy, your mind will find ways to make you busy, and it may not be productive. They're not the same thing. You can be, what I've learned is most people that are busy and truly are feeling busy is they're going off of a task list and they're staying busy because they're actually really avoiding the things they really wanted to get done. That's productive. And I've found that myself, even though I do finances, taxes are like the thing I really don't like to do. But I can find that, oh, I like cleaning my house when I have my tax paperwork to do. I have to remind myself, no, your goal is to get them done by whatever date. And I have to just keep reminding myself, nope, it's better to go get these done because then the weight's off my shoulders. I have my part done and I have to do it. And so oftentimes busy is really just the avoidance tactic to actually being productive on something you truly want to get done. Maybe that is self-care. Maybe that is spending time with your kids on an intentional 10 minutes a piece per day, or something like that. Maybe it's working on your relationship if you're married, or in a relation, in an intimate relationship, or even your friends. Maybe it's just friends. Maybe you're just avoiding it and being busy because you don't want to spend time with your friends because, oh, maybe they bring up some stuff for you. Usually that stuff is really an avoidance tactic to something else you really probably should take a look at.
Something to think about there is why are I'm trying to figure out like why do I say it, and I feel like it's like a badge of honor, like I've done all these things, but it's like you said it. But if I switch it to productive, then I'm actually saying the things that I did do today versus busy. So my last question for you as we wrap up is, again, this is all about living in your genius, finding what really makes you flow through the day. So how do you feel when you're in your genius?
I just feel a lot more calm, and I have a lot more intentions, like actually getting something done. But I just really feel like kind of in the flow state where things are just coming together versus a resistance. Because I found where if it's something just wasn't right, I've learned even something doing a mindless task. Oftentimes, I actually go to playing solitary or something. If there's something that I need to ponder on, I'll go to playing something mindless that doesn't take a lot of thought so I can actually think about it. But it distracts my mind from the doldrums of that, what I need to think about. Um, but it allows me to almost have a flow state. Another flow state for me is sculpting. I just, I can get lost in it and spend hours before I know it. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was doing it that long. And I think that's why when you're in your genius and you're feeding yourself, you come up with better solutions. When your kids are being obnoxious or into stuff, or I mean, whatever, or maybe it's, an employee or a coworker that's driving you bonkers. When you're in your flow state, those kind of things just kind of brush up against you and you just are able to go with it anyways. Or you look at it and go, well, I don't know what they're going through today, but we're going to keep doing my thing today.
Yes.
Versus when you're not in that genius, that's feeding yourself, everything you hit is just a bigger challenge, right? You just make mountains out of molehills. You just keep making a bigger problem and it just explodes, right? Whereas when you're in that genius, you can just find that calm state of mind and a better, beautiful state to answer your problems or find clarity and be more resourceful. Otherwise, you could have $100 sitting next to you, man, and go, I need $100, and you will not see it. But when you're in your flow state, you might see $200 of resources sitting there. So it just depends on how open your mind is.
Well, on that note, I do have screaming kids out there, so it is time to wrap it up anyways. Mom life, right? And I need to
Right.
go give them some hugs because they need some TLC, right? So we got to give that
Absolutely.
both ways and everything. So thank you so much, Anne, for coming on. Just give us quickly how people can get a hold of you.
LinkedIn is the best. My website will be up here in the next couple months. Hopefully, we're working on it slowly but surely. But otherwise, LinkedIn is a great way to get a hold of me. On there with inspiring solutions for you, or look me up by my name, and I'm there as well.
And go listen to a podcast 2 or 7 now because we're up
Yep.
to 7 up today. Another one coming out tomorrow. Go check out the discounts on the digital courses this week on connectingmamas.com. Everything's there for you. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful, genius night. And remember, let's do motherhood together. We'll see you all later. Good night, everyone.
Take care.